My younger brother tried to kidnap my wife, but when I caught him in our bedroom at 2 a.m. with chloroform in a ring, I discovered my mother helped him the whole time, giving him our address and left them both broken. I'm 30 years old. I work as a software developer, and I need to get this story off my chest because what happened last year basically made me realize that your family can be your worst enemy, and that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the ones who hurt you the most. The thing is, my younger brother tried to kidnap my wife, and my mother helped him the whole time. And when I say she helped him, I'm not exaggerating. She literally gave him information so he could stalk her. But I guess I should start from the beginning, when everything seemed normal, or at least what I thought was normal at the time. I met Amanda like 3 years ago at a coffee shop near my work. You know, one of those casual encounters you see in movies but never think will happen to you. She was drawing in a notebook and dropped a pencil that rolled to my feet. And when I gave it back to her, we ended up talking for like 2 hours. Turns out she was an art teacher at a high school. She was 27 at the time, and she had lost her parents in a car accident when she was 20, so she had no close family. I thought that was sad, but also, I don't know. I felt like I should take care of her or something. We got married 9 months later, which I know sounds fast, but when you know what I mean? Amanda suggested we move close to my family because she'd always wanted that big family experience, those Sunday dinners and all that. And I was happy to make her happy because I thought my family was normal, or at least not toxic. My family consisted of my mom, Judith. She was like 52 when we got married. My older sister, Kimberly, who's 2 years older than me, and my younger brother, Colin, who's 2 years younger. I always knew Colin was Mom's favorite, like it was super obvious since we were kids, but I never thought it would get to the sick levels it ended up reaching. Colin basically could do whatever he wanted, and Mom always justified it, always had an excuse for him. No. That classic spoiled son who never grew up. He worked part-time at I don't know how many different places because he never lasted long anywhere, lived in Mom's basement, and honestly had never had a serious relationship with anyone, at least that I knew of. The first few months after the wedding, everything seemed fine. We lived in an apartment like 20 minutes from Mom's house. Amanda got along well with Kimberly, and we had those family dinners Amanda wanted so much. But then Colin started showing up at our apartment unannounced, like he'd knock on the door and say he was in the area, could he come in for a bit. At first it didn't seem weird to me because, well, he was my brother. But the frequency started getting strange, like 2 or 3 times a week, and he always brought something, flowers for Amanda, chocolates. Once, he even brought her an expensive necklace that I know he couldn't afford on his salary. Amanda told me she thought it was sweet that Colin wanted to get to know her better, that he probably just wanted to feel part of our life, and I wanted to believe her because the alternative was too disturbing to even consider. The first real sign that something was wrong was at Colin's birthday dinner. I think he was turning 26 or something. We were all at Mom's house, there was cake, gifts, the usual, and Colin was drinking a few too many beers. At one point he raised his beer and said, half joking but not really joking, that Amanda would have been perfect for him, that I had just gotten to her first and beat him to it. We all went quiet. Like that uncomfortable silence that hurts, and I looked at Amanda and she was completely red, didn't know where to hide. Mom laughed and said something like, "Oh, Colin, you're so funny," but I didn't see anything funny about it at all. Kimberly quickly changed the subject and the night went on, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. About the way Colin had looked at Amanda when he said it, like he really meant it. That night when we got home, I asked Amanda if Colin had ever made her uncomfortable, and she went quiet for a moment too long, and that's when I knew he had. She told me she didn't want to worry me, that it probably wasn't anything, but that Colin sometimes stood too close to her, that he made comments about her appearance that were a bit more personal than normal, like "I love how that dress looks on you," or "that perfume smells amazing on you," and that once he had tried to hold her hand when I had gone to the bathroom. I got furious, literally felt my blood boil, and wanted to go to Mom's house right then and punch Colin in the face. But Amanda begged me not to make a scene, that she could handle it, that she'd just keep her distance from him. I shouldn't have listened to her. That's one of the things I regret most. I should have confronted Colin that very night. But I waited, and things only got worse. Colin kept showing up unannounced, and I started noticing everything, the way he looked at her, how he always found excuses to touch her arm or shoulder, how he offered to help her with anything, even when there was no need. One day I confronted him when he was alone. Like I caught him outside our building when he was arriving with more flowers and told him he needed to stop showing up like that his behavior with Amanda was inappropriate. And you know what he did? He laughed. Literally laughed in my face and told me I was paranoid, that he was just being nice to my wife, that what kind of brother would he be if he didn't make her feel welcome in the family. He told me I had trust issues and should go to therapy or something. He made me feel like the crazy one, like I was making things up. I told Kimberly what was happening and she sighed, like that sigh of someone who's not surprised at all, and told me Colin had always been weird with women, that he'd had problems in college with a girl he wouldn't leave alone, but that Mom had fixed everything by paying the girl not to press charges. I didn't know any of that. Nobody had ever told me, and I got so angry at my family for hiding it. Kimberly advised me to put distance between us, that maybe we should move far away, but Amanda and I had stable jobs there and moving seemed like an overreaction at the time. Although looking back, we should have done it immediately. Things got to a point where I basically banned Colin from coming to our apartment. I changed the rules, told him that if he wanted to see us, he had to give us advance notice and could only come if I was present. He acted like I was breaking his heart or something. And of course Mom called to scold me, telling me I was being cruel to my brother, that Colin just wanted to feel part of my new life. I explained what was happening and she told me exactly what Colin said, that I was overreacting, that I was being paranoid, that Colin would never do anything wrong. That's when I realized Mom was going to defend Colin no matter what, that he could do anything and she'd justify it. Like 3 months passed, more or less like that, with Colin keeping his distance because I'd basically threatened him, and things seemed to calm down. Then I got an incredible job offer in Kansas City, Missouri, like a considerable salary increase and better growth opportunities, and Amanda was also able to get a position at a school there. We decided to move but didn't tell anyone except Kimberly, and specifically asked her not to tell Colin or Mom until we were already settled. We basically moved in secret, hired a moving company, packed everything, and left. We told Mom we were leaving only like 2 days before, when it was too late for her to do anything about it, and didn't give her our new address. We thought that would be the end, that Colin couldn't bother us anymore, that we could finally have peace. We were in Kansas City for like a month, settling into our new house, getting to know the city, and Amanda. There was so happy. Like I saw her really smile again. Not that forced smile she'd been putting on the last few months. I was starting my new job. Everything was going well, and I thought we'd escaped. But then, one Saturday morning, there was a knock on the door, and when I opened it, it was Colin, standing there with a huge bouquet of red roses, smiling like nothing was wrong. I couldn't believe it, literally, froze, speechless, and Colin just walked in like it was the most normal thing in the world. Amanda was in the kitchen, and when she saw him, she went completely pale. I asked him how the hell he'd found our address, and he said he had his ways, that I couldn't get rid of him that easily, that we were family and family sticks together. I told him to leave immediately, that I'd call the police if he didn't leave, and he put on that hurt puppy face he always put on when you confronted him, but eventually he left. I locked the door and Amanda started crying, like really crying, shaking and everything. And I realized this was worse than I'd thought, that Colin wasn't going to leave us alone just because we moved. I called Kimberly immediately, and she was hysterical, told me Colin had stolen our address from her purse when he'd gone to visit her, that she hadn't even realized until that moment. But then she told me something that left me frozen. She told me she'd found a box in Colin's room at Mom's house when she'd gone to get some things, and that in that box there were like hundreds of photos of Amanda, some taken without her knowing, like when she was leaving the store or walking down the street, and that there were also recordings of her voice, like audio files where Colin had recorded conversations with Amanda without her knowing. Kimberly sent me photos of everything by text, and when I saw them, I felt like I was going to throw up. It was so disturbing, so sick. We went to the police that same afternoon, but they told us that until Colin did something actually illegal, they couldn't do much, that having photos of someone and showing up at their house wasn't technically a crime if there were no direct threats. They suggested a restraining order but warned us that could take time. We installed security cameras all over the house, changed the locks, even though Colin never had keys. and Amanda stopped going out alone. I drove her to and from work every day. We basically lived in a constant state of anxiety, looking over our shoulder all the time, and it was horrible to see Amanda like that. Her who had been so cheerful and relaxed was now scared in her own house. One afternoon, Amanda went to an art supply store near her school to buy materials for her classes, and when she left, she felt like someone was following her. She looked back and saw Colin in his car, following her. She drove straight home without stopping anywhere, and Colin followed her the whole way, never trying to hide, just following her openly. When she got to the house, I was working from home that day, and she ran inside crying. I went out and saw Colin's car parked on the street, and he just waved at me and left. That night we slept with a chair against the bedroom door because Amanda was too scared. Then we discovered Colin knew where Amanda went to do her sketches in the mornings. Amanda had this routine where on Saturdays she'd wake up early, like 6 in the morning, and go to a nearby park to draw. It helped her relax. It was her moment of peace. I usually stayed sleeping because I worked hard all week, and Saturdays were my only day to rest. One Saturday, I decided to go with her. I don't know why, I just had a bad feeling. And when we got to the park, Colin was already there, sitting on a bench, waiting. When he saw us together, he got angry. I literally saw his face change, and he left without saying anything. That's when I realized he'd been going there every Saturday, waiting for her. And Amanda had been there alone with him without knowing it, because he hid where she couldn't see him. That was what finally made us stop going out at all except to go to work. The restraining order was finally approved, like 2 weeks after all this, and we thought that would help, that at least now if Colin came near we could have him arrested. But Colin didn't seem to care at all. He kept showing up, although now he stayed at the legal required distance, like parking in front of our house but staying in his car, or walking down our block but not approaching our property. The police couldn't do anything because, technically, he wasn't violating the order, and Colin knew it. He was playing with us. Then the worst thing happened. It was a Tuesday night, like 2 in the morning, and I woke up because I heard a noise downstairs. I thought maybe it was the neighbor's cat or something, but something made me get up to check. I went down the stairs without turning on the lights, and everything was dark and quiet. I didn't see anything weird in the living room or kitchen, so I thought I'd imagined it and went back upstairs. But when I got to our bedroom and opened the door, Colin was there, sitting on the floor next to Amanda's bed, holding her hand while she slept. Time stopped. I literally couldn't process what I was seeing. And there was a duffel bag on the floor next to Colin that we later found out contained duct tape, zip ties, chloroform, and an engagement ring. Colin turned to look at me and smiled as if it was the most normal thing in the world, that he was in our bedroom in the middle of the night touching my sleeping wife, and said something like, "We can finally be together," as if he was talking about something romantic and not a kidnapping plan. I went at him, didn't even think, just reacted, and we started fighting right there in the bedroom. Amanda woke up screaming and ran to call the police. Colin and I rolled on the floor. He was trying to reach his bag, but I wouldn't let him, and at some point I managed to get him on the ground and keep him there until the police arrived. When the officers arrived and saw what was in the bag, and saw how Colin had entered through a basement window he'd forced open, they took him away immediately. Colin was screaming as they took him away, things about how this wasn't over, that Amanda was his, that I had stolen her from him, basically confirming he was completely insane. The case went to trial like 3 months later, and Colin pleaded guilty to stalking, breaking and entering, and attempted kidnapping. He got 4 years in prison, which honestly seemed like too little for what he'd tried to do. But the judge said it was the maximum he could give, considering he technically hadn't succeeded in kidnapping her. During the trial, it came to light that Mom had been helping Colin the whole time, that she'd given him our address in Kansas City, that she'd told him the route Amanda took to work, that she'd basically been his informant. They also discovered Colin had stalked 2 other women before, and that Mom had paid both of them not to press charges, like she'd used her savings and even taken out a loan to protect Colin. Mom was charged as an accessory and received 3 years probation. And honestly, that hurt more than anything with Colin, because Colin clearly had mental problems, but Mom was completely sane and still chose to help him stalk and try to kidnap my wife. Kimberly testified against them in the trial. I mean, against Colin and Mom. And after that, Mom disinherited her and stopped talking to her too. Now basically Mom only has Colin, and when he gets out of prison, they'll probably live together again, and I don't want to know anything about them. We moved to another house on the other side of town after the trial, didn't tell anyone except Kimberly the address. And Amanda cut her hair and dyed it a different color because she was afraid someone would recognize her or find her, even though we logically knew. Colin was in prison and couldn't do anything. She started therapy and still goes twice a week. She has trouble sleeping and sometimes has panic attacks, especially if someone knocks on the door without warning, or if she sees a car similar to the one Colin had. I also go to therapy now, because I realized I was carrying a lot of guilt for not protecting Amanda better, for minimizing the signs at the beginning, for thinking that moving away would be enough. We cut contact with my entire family except Kimberly, who's now basically the only family member I have left. She comes to visit us every 2 months or so, always with advance notice. And it's weird because she also lost Mom in all this, but she says she doesn't regret doing the right thing. Colin gets out of prison in like 3.5 years, and when that happens, we'll probably move again, maybe to another state. I don't know yet, but we're definitely not staying here. Last week, Amanda asked me if I thought Colin really loved her or if it was just a sick obsession, and I honestly don't know how to answer that, because love and obsession are completely different things, but Colin probably can't distinguish between the two. I told her it didn't matter, that what Colin felt or feels isn't love, and that we have real love, the kind of love that protects and cares, not the kind that stalks and terrorizes. She nodded, but I know it still goes around in her head. I know it probably always will. And that's something we have to live with now, I guess.